Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Sunkara Hub Talks. My name is Raaga Kodali, and I am the marketing lead and co-host of this platform. Today, we're launching a new episode in our series called People of Impact, which is centered around guests who have had great effects and impacts on their own communities. These individuals are inspiring others to make significant changes for the overall enhancement of our communities. The Sunkara Hub was first introduced to our guest today during a Design for Causes camp that was sponsored by this organization. The camp members utilized various design methodologies that they had learned in the process of the camp to create informative and contemporary social media posts for our guest's foundation. That was a very memorable experience, along with an out of the box opportunity to volunteer for the needs that we are all passionate about. Now, my co-host will give a bit more context as to who our guest is today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rohan Sunkara, and I'm the other co-host of this series. So I would now like to introduce our guest for today, Vicki Singer Wolf. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Vicki is one of the founders of His Breast Cancer Awareness, along with her brother Harvey. Their commitment to raising awareness about the topic of male breast cancer and how to avoid it stems from a long history of breast cancer in their family, including both of them having it. The work they do is incredibly important since male breast cancer is something that is very dangerous but is often overlooked. With that being said, welcome. Thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of this.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Great. So I'd like to start with the first question. So firstly, I wanted to ask, what is the mission and the vision of the His Foundation? And in addition, what are some of the programs it offers and its primary areas of focus?
The mission for His Breast Cancer is primarily to help educate, bring awareness, educate, and support men who are at risk of developing breast cancer or have been diagnosed with breast cancer. As you mentioned, many men aren't aware that they can even be diagnosed with this disease. You think breast cancer and most people think females and pink. We bring a little blue into the world of breast cancer to help educate and support the men, because early detection is what's going to help save lives. And, they just need to be aware that they can be diagnosed with breast cancer. What was the second part to your?
Yeah, sure. So the second part of my question was, what are some of the programs and that the His Foundation offers, and what are the overall primary areas of focus?
Sure. Well, our primary area is education. We are not about research. We're not going to find the cure for breast cancer. That's not what we're about. I, as a survivor, I'm a 4-time breast cancer survivor. After my third diagnosis is when I learned that I carry the BRCA2 genetic mutation, which puts me at a higher risk of developing breast cancer, ovarian, pancreatic, melanomas, and for men, it also can include prostate. And I share that information, with my brothers and my sons. What does this mean that I have this mutation? And it's important to know that it can be carried down from a male or a female to a male or female. So, a father can share this with a son or daughter. A mother can also pass it to a son or daughter. So, so often we think of genetic mutations and the first thing that comes to mind is, what about my daughter? And, we're trying to expand that to say, what about my children and my family? And so when I shared that with both my brothers, they thought breast cancer. I had breast cancer several times, and what does this really mean to them? And it didn't really hit them fully until about a year and a half later, when my brother felt a lump. Actually was with a bunch of guys for a guys' weekend, and one of the one of his friends kind of gave him a big bear hug and sent a shooting pain in around the nipple area. And when the weekend was over, he looked at his wife. He said, I've got this pain. I think I have like a little lump. It's around the nipple. Went to his doctor, said, let's get a mammogram. He called me on the phone. He said, they want me to do a mammogram. How do I do that? Can I do that? I'm a guy, Yes, men can have mammograms. And so, it's really about educating the world, because there are professionals out there that don't even, think about the fact that men can be diagnosed with breast cancer. It's just not a topic, at the top of people's minds. And so nobody's checking. It's often found when it's much further progressed, and which is why it's often more fatal for men than women. So that's our primary goal, is to just, educate people, make sure they're aware, make sure they understand their family history, whether that includes genetic testing or just knowing that you're at a higher familial risk, doing what's necessary, to help in prevention or for early detection.
So when we were collecting money for his during our design camp, one of the most common comments we received was how shocked people were to learn that male breast cancer even existed. I know you're talking about that. It's something that not many people really know is a thing. So, it's often thought to be a condition, as you said, that exclusively affects women. And, the truth is that, males who have it, the fact that they can have it means that they can also suffer from it. And they also have a higher mortality rate because they're not, regularly screening for that kind of thing. And it's not identified quickly enough in many cases. So what are some of the recommendations for males that you have to become more alert and do self-checks, for example? Is there anything related to that? Any advice that you would have?
Sure. Yes, absolutely. Well, the easiest thing, just like it is for a female, is a self-breast exam. Get to know your body, get familiar with, what you're feeling and touching, and then you'll know if there's something different, any changes. So we, on the website at hisbreastcancer.org, there are instructions there on how to perform a self-breast exam. It actually has the image of a man as opposed to a female, just to bring that comfort level. You mentioned about, the fact that most men don't realize that they can be diagnosed with this. There is a large stigma that goes along with this diagnosis. There's a large stigma that goes along with this, that, everything's pink. You walk into, even just going in to get your mammogram, you're given a pink ribbon, a pink robe, and, everything surrounded is about, women. So it's important to know that you can also, this is, I'm so sorry. This is, in the group, my husband, my brother, when he went to play golf, many of his friends looked at him and kind of in a joking manner said, oh, are you going to play from the red, the female, the ladies' tees instead of the men now that you've had breast cancer, funny, but not. It's a sensitive area, he would walk into a doctor's appointment or there for some test, an MRI, and his wife would be with him, and the neighbor looks and says, oh, I'm sorry, are you here, because of your wife? Or they call Mrs. Singer instead of Mr. Singer. And so there's a lot behind that goes along with a breast cancer diagnosis for a man. But we do recommend that if you do have a family history, it's very important in anything to know your family health history, what you might be at higher risk for, whether that's high cholesterol or heart disease or, diabetes or anything. You want to be aware. Well, it's important to know that if you have cancer in your family, can that put you at a higher risk, and what types of cancer? And that's where genetic testing comes in. So we are we have very strong feelings about genetic testing. We feel it's important information. What you choose to do with that information is, 100% up to you, but it's important to at least learn and get that knowledge. And just like my brother, when he felt something going on and he knew something was different, had he not known about me, or had he not been aware of our genetic testing and the fact, that we were at higher risk, he may have let it go. A lot of men say, oh, I was just working out at the gym, so I'm a little sore, they come up with 20 other reasons. It's important to know what you might be dealing with and have that knowledge and support. So with that genetic testing, if you do carry a genetic mutation, usually around which is common to test for men about the age of 35, or when you're ready to settle down and start a family. You can also start receiving annual mammograms after the age of 35. It's good to get a baseline, if nothing more. So there are tests that, can be completed. I have 3 sons, and, they all do self breast exams. They're aware of it. Obviously, they're educated. Another part of that is making, healthier lifestyle choices. If you know that you are at a higher risk for diabetes, you're going to watch the types of foods you're eating. Well, the same goes, for cancer. And I'm a strong believer in, we are what we eat, what we put on our body. Choosing a healthier diet, more plant-based. When my cancers were all diagnosed, they were all hormonally driven. So for me, choosing foods that do not contain added hormones. So I choose a lot of organic foods. I don't eat much meat, but if I do, I want it to at least be organic, so that I know the hormones aren't in there, in addition to other factors. So I think that there's a lot of things that one can do for themselves, making sure that they, take time to de-stress, whatever that is for you. Exercise is, an important part, should be an important part of your lifestyle if you are at a higher risk for, a cancer diagnosis. And then obviously, knowing if you carry a genetic mutation. And we do have a whole tab on our website, at hisbreastcancer.org, just about genetics and hereditary cancers, and knowing what your risk might be if you have any of those. So yeah, that's I think a key factor, especially with male breast cancer. Higher risk if you come from Ashkenazi Jewish background, but we talk to people all over the world, and believe it or not, Ireland has a very high number of genetic carriers and male breast cancer. We talk to people everywhere. So yes, it's important to know your own health history, know what you're facing, and then how to, what do you need to do for yourself that's going to lower your risk factor. Obviously, I still have cancer. Does eating organic foods or taking vitamins or exercise prevent it all? No, we're all not going to live to 200, But do I believe that it has slowed progression? Would I have been diagnosed possibly when I was even younger? Could it have been more advanced stages? I do believe that. So, I think how we take care of our own body is an important factor.
So we had a question written down here about the screening process for men, and if it was different to like mammograms, but as you were speaking about with your brother, it is the same thing. You get mammograms. So I guess another follow-up question to that would be, if somebody's in the same position that maybe your brother was in, where they feel a lump, or they just want to be cautious and maybe get it checked out, how would one go about doing that? Do you just schedule an appointment with your doctor? Is there something else you need to do? How would you go about doing that?
I think you should start with your primary physician and let them examine you. They'll have a better sense. You mentioned about testing, mammograms, ultrasounds, also breast MRIs are all part of determining, a diagnosis. So yes, I would start with your general practitioner. For a female, they can choose maybe their gynecologist to see and talk about it. There's a few other avenues, but I think also when you go to your primary doctor and he's doing his yearly physical, which hopefully people are having done, it's important to be your own advocate. And so there's no reason you cannot say to your primary doctor, while you're giving me this physical, and in most cases for men, they're checking their prostate and they're doing those exams as well, to say, could you do a breast exam on me? I mean, I've been with doctors who know what I do and don't even think about it. My husband went to see his physician at one point, and his mom had breast cancer, and the doctor got all done, and he said, wow, this is great. You look good here. This is good. Numbers here are good. And my husband looked at him and he said, you didn't check my breast. And he said, you know what? You're right. And I won't do that again. Every year I will make sure, so if you know that you might have a higher family risk, there's nothing wrong with asking your doctor to please, do a breast exam on you.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And like you just said, I think it's so important, especially as a male or even as a female, to, like you said, advocate for your body and to not feel very uncomfortable to speak with your doctor about something like this if you have even the slightest of concerns. So I think that's a very good point. I'd like to now transition into some more business-related questions regarding the foundation. So firstly, what are some of the hardships and challenges that nonprofits face in general, especially smaller organizations that strive to do more impactful work on like a local scale?
Well, I think you especially use the word smaller. We aren't the larger breast cancer awareness organizations that are out there that are getting an extremely large amount of money from, pharmaceutical companies and research companies and hospitals. So I think for us, and I'm sure they have their challenges as well, meeting their financial goals each year. For us, it's a little bit different. As I said, we're not out to find the cure. So our needs are obviously a little less, but doesn't make them less important. If you don't know, then you can't be educated and you don't know what you're looking for. So for us, the challenge is, we are small. We do not have a large team behind us. So, actually working with the Designs for Cause was a great opportunity for us, because not only did it help teach the younger adults that this group, that this class was about, and they learned something, but it also gave them the opportunity to give back, and for us to use those tools to help continue to educate. And we love the work that was created on these designs by the students. It was really wonderful and really appreciated, honestly. And we are sharing those on social media. We see comments back where people, just say, thank you, this is great information. So, we do different things. We provide pamphlets. We have a full colored pamphlet that you could either download from the website, or we can send to you. That, as I said, they're in full color. We ship them to hospitals. We ship them to fundraising organizations that are out there. Maybe college, universities are working with other students trying to help expand the education about this. And, or they do runs and walks and, whatever their fundraisers are. So we share those pamphlets, which have great information as well. I have a copy here. So my brother actually wrote a book. It's called Sir, You Have Breast Cancer, which are pretty much the words that he heard when he received the phone call. That's available either through our website or also on through Amazon. Through Amazon, they have a wonderful charitable side to them. If you're not familiar with it, you go to smile.amazon. And when you do that, you can choose a charity such as his breast cancer. And then every time you shop Amazon, a portion is donated to our organization. So, little things such as that really can add up and make a big difference. We do sell different awareness products on our website. There is a shop page, the awareness bands and T-shirts and hats and things of that nature. So those things do add up. But, obviously we look to other companies for support, and people, hopefully choose us for different purposes. I mean, sometimes it's unfortunate because they've lost somebody to male breast cancer and choose our organization as the one to receive donations in their honor and memory. But it's not easy. And I think especially during these more recent pandemic times, a lot of people aren't holding the fundraisers the way we used to. We've had golf outings and we've done those kinds of things, and they're all, great ways. But now you look for a little bit more creative virtual things to do. So do the best we can. My brother and I do not take any salary or have any income that comes from our organization. This is completely a not-for-profit, fully accredited 501c3 organization. So all donations go directly to the organization, the foundation, to just turn around and use to help educate and support others.
Got it. And I appreciated the point that you mentioned the pandemic, because obviously not just for small businesses, but for everyone as a whole, the pandemic did disrupt how life was before. So were there any specific challenges that his organization faced during the pandemic?
Well, plenty. Obviously, like I said, we normally attend several conferences a year. Those were all put on hold, or done somewhat virtually if they could be completed that way. I've attended local meetings that we weren't able to do. I think it's great. We've found many ways to have some workarounds to still reach people and talk to people, but it's not the same as when you are face to face with them, and especially when it comes to support, talking to men or family of male breast cancer survivors, about how to deal with their emotions, how to get from step 1 to step 2 to step 3, so where things would be a little bit more personalized. I guess we have to be thankful for the means that we have and make the best use of them. That's all you can do. Hopefully, and I will say that through the pandemic, I know that many people, were not getting the tests that they needed to have. They weren't going for their annual mammograms and MRIs. Maybe they put off having genetic testing done because, not right now. I don't want to go to a hospital. I don't want to go, but unfortunately, a cancer diagnosis doesn't get put on hold, and, it doesn't wait for the pandemic to end. So you just have to find the right time and the right place that will assist you to get it accomplished. And take care of yourself, because that's what's most important. Early detection is what will help save a life.
Yeah, so I completely agree with what you're talking about. I think it's incredibly important to make sure that just make sure that you get these tests done as early as possible. If you feel something, just to be cautious, just to make sure that you can prevent it as quickly as possible. So I think that's incredibly important. So again, I know you spoke about this a little bit, in terms of like the funding. You were talking about how you had like merchandise, or rather just like items that were sort of related to your foundation that you sold. You had the book. So I guess my question is are those kind of like the main sources of income for your nonprofit? Like, where does most of the money come from Is it like, do you have like memberships or something? I know you're speaking about events. Like, where is the funding coming from, I guess, is what I was wondering.
More often personal than corporate. We do have a couple corporate companies that do help support us, have chosen our organization for their support, whether it's because it's touched home personally, or they just feel this is somewhere that they know that we're not getting the large support pharmaceutical companies. But we have, it's not easy out there, but we do the best with what we have to work with. And we try to reach as many people as possible. Harvey and I were also part of a full-length documentary. It's called Pink and Blue, Colors of Hereditary Cancer. It's available actually on Apple, can be downloaded and watched, rented, or purchased. Was a producer out of California who, this was his career, and unfortunately had a sister who passed from metastatic breast cancer, carried the BRCA genetic mutation, found that he does as well. And so it made a change in his life for him, and how he was going to have to live his life moving forward, and wanted to make a difference for others. And we connected, and that was really, truly a wonderful, moving experience. And we have shown this film in many countries, all over, and it's now that it's available, online, to see it. I highly recommend it. It's not just about men, it's not just about women, it's about families, and what families go through in a diagnosis of, again, not only cancer, but also, carrying the genetic mutation, your risk factors. It always seems in some family there's, a cousin or a sister or brother that chooses not to get tested. It's kind of like they just don't want to know. They don't want to live their life with that information. And, look, everybody has to do what they feel comfortable with, but, we don't feel that way. Obviously, we feel that information is extremely important, and will help save life. But the documentary is great. You laugh, you cry. It's a little bit of everything in between, and I highly recommend it. So, yeah. So we've had a lot of different opportunities, to just be exposed out there. But financially, you do the best you can as a nonprofit. And I think also in today's world, there are so many. It feels like every other day you could be supporting a friend who's supporting, wants you to give to this foundation and this organization. And, you just have to, at this point, you have to decide this year, this is what my support is, or these are the 5 organizations or, foundations that I think are important to get that message out. Do most people know that breast cancer exists? Yeah, most people do. Do most people know male breast cancer exists? No, they do not.
Yeah, so like you were saying, I'd recommend anybody who's listening to this to, take a look at the documentary you were talking about, and also the book. I'm sure they're great resources. I haven't been able to read them yet, but I'm sure they're great resources, and I'm sure they provide a lot of insight into what it's like to be close to people who maybe have been diagnosed with breast cancer, and also to carry it yourself. So again, I really recommend that people go check that out if they can. And I think it's also a testament to, I guess, your investment in this cause, that, you do a lot of self-funding for the foundation, and you put a lot of your own time and effort and also money into making sure it stays up to help other people. So
yes,
I think, it's a great thing.
My oldest son, who's wonderfully technically talented, helps us manage the website and keep that fresh and updated with information. So that's helpful too. So it all does stem from family, But yeah, like, we say we have our paying jobs and our rewarding jobs. And for us, that's what this is.
Yeah, so with this series, we have, I guess, a lot of younger people or maybe even older people who are kind of interested maybe in entrepreneurship and maybe running a nonprofit, or, the series is kind of based on people who make an impact for people in need, and kind of raise awareness for things or help people out. So I wanted to also talk about like maybe kind of like, again, like how the nonprofit is kind of run. So do you have like a quarterly financial requirement? Do you go through like budgeting and revisions? Is it like run like a company, or is it more small scale?
For us, it's a little bit more small scaled. I'm sure, as a nonprofit, yes, that's important to have all the things that you just mentioned. And my brother and I, there are times where we just sit down and talk about what our goals are, what we want for the year, what we're looking to accomplish, how we're going to get there. Unfortunately, the pandemic, as I said, has changed some of our goals, and we've had to rethink them. But absolutely, I mean, look, he and I talk all the time anyway. He's my brother. Yeah, we talk about our budget. We talk about where we're going or what changes we want to see happening. We don't need a formal board to sit down. We meet with our financial person, a couple times a year. So all that is, taxes still get filed, things of all that nature, no matter small or large. Like I said, we are a fully accredited foundation, so we do have to report.
So I think that was some really good information you shared there. Especially, it's important to consider that whether you're a small organization that is a nonprofit or a big corporate business trying to make money, some of these things like the funding and actually keeping track of your funding and filing your tax records and all that, it still applies. So I think that's a good point to bring up. My next question sort of piggybacks off of the last one. So does the His Foundation host any fundraising or awareness events? And if so, are they all local or are they more regional?
So we have done, we've hosted a few. We really haven't hosted large conferences. We have done things online. We have email, newsletters that we put out. We attend many conferences and help, and when we attend those conferences, what I mean by not only are they educational for us because there's meetings and, speakers, but we also usually exhibit. We'll have tables available with information. We've had tables at just, school events or colleges. And we've had some people be the advocate for us if they're there, or we've attended some. So yeah, it works always. Like I said, things have been a little bit more difficult the past couple of years, but outside of that, we started our foundation in 2009. So, we've been going at this for a little bit. When we started, the reason we've co-founded this organization, honestly, was when my brother was diagnosed, when Harvey heard those words that, you have breast cancer. We sat on the phone many a night at 2, 3 in the morning, talking, Googling, doing whatever you're going to do, trying to find information about male breast cancer. I could help him on many of his questions because I had already been diagnosed several times. So yeah, when we talk about which tests he's going to have, I can tell him what it's going to be like and, what to expect, or here's what you're going to need. But for a man, it was different. And, we just felt, he has 2 sons. I have 3 sons. I also now, in addition, have 3 grandsons, in addition to 3 granddaughters. And we wanted something to be different for the males, to not have to go through the things that that Harvey experienced during his diagnosis. And what we found was there was nothing out there. The best we could come up with was what it was like to be a male supporting a female in their life, or a husband supporting their wife. There wasn't information on men with breast cancer. And that means even in the larger organizations, there was no talk about men. There was a point in time that I met directly with a local large organization, and I'm not going to mention any names. And I looked at them and I said, it's as simple as adding 2 words, and men. In your sentence, whatever you say about women, you say, for awareness and education, and men, women and men. That's it. This breast cancer doesn't affect just one gender. And so, that's how we just said we wanted things to be different for our sons in the future. It's why I tested for the genetic mutation. It wasn't about me. It was helpful for me. I went on and did other things because I learned that I carry the mutation, but it was about, well, maybe for my children or my grandchildren, there will be, a vaccine one day. And because they have this knowledge and this information, they'll say, I can get a vaccine and prevent it. And we are getting closer to that, closer than we were when I, was tested in 2005, much closer. So, and that's why we, founded His Breast Cancer. We just wanted a place for men to be able to come and get information and ask questions and know that they had somebody that they could talk to, about a diagnosis.